don't you walk me through the board?
Some turnover is needed in the boardroom. Many are near retirement age.
We're really at the juncture of a generational shift in the boardroom. The challenge of attracting the right person at the right time.
What does that process look like?
We'll put up with things that maybe we shouldn't.
It's a risk anytime you make a change, right?
I would say no.
Dear board members, instead of our normal proxy voting system to elect new board members, this year we're going to be doing something a bit different. That's right. Time for a game of musical board chairs.
Hey, there's no chair for me.
And how many boards do you serve on?
5? Kinda lost count.
That can be a problem. Too spread out. Thank you for your service.
Now wait a minute, I know I deserve a seat.
Your area of expertise?
Well, I don't have an area per se, I'm more of a generalist.
Some generalists are needed, but this board has too many. Thank you for your service.
But now there are only 8 of us.
8 diversely skilled, supremely motivated board members. Now that's what I call a perfect composition. I'll be going now. See you next year!
Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. If there's one thing both company management and boards can agree on, it's that some turnover is needed in the boardroom. In fact, a remarkable 9 out of 10 executives and nearly half of directors think at least one board member should be replaced. The likely reason? Only 28% of executives feel their current boards are armed with the right combination of skills and expertise. Despite some directors being reluctant to step down voluntarily, the issue of replacing directors is currently steamrolling to a head as many are near retirement age. As of last year, directors aged 66 to 70 held almost a quarter of S&P 500 director seats. So we're at a crossroads for boards, which of course continue to play a crucial role in setting corporate agendas. Let's jump to the heart of what and the why of how to play the board game. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. Meanwhile, I'm joined today by Jane Stevenson, Korn Ferry's Vice Chair of its Board and CEO Services. She's placed directors on many major boards over the years and has some deep insight on this issue. Jane, thank you for being with us today.
It's great to be here.
As I mentioned at the top, fewer than 1/3 of executives feel their current boards have the right skills. Is that what's mainly behind this push for director turnover, or are there other factors at play here?
The need for new skills is really only one part of what's needed in directors in the boardroom. We're really at the juncture of a generational shift in the boardroom today. And what we're seeing is, for a variety of reasons, some are reaching the end of a term, if there's a term limit or age requirements, or we're also seeing a number of directors who are in their late 60s and they're just ready to move on from being directors.
Got it. So as I understand it, boards of major corporations are coming to you and saying, hey, we'd like your help to find a successor to our outgoing director. And you're actually saying to them, you know what, let me help you find your next 4 or 5 directors. And you call this concept board progression as opposed to board succession. And it's fascinating to me. Can you talk a little bit more about this progression versus succession notion?
The concept in the past has been a director says that they're going to be retiring or stepping off the board, and then there is an iterative director transition, right? So you're looking for a replacement for an individual director as opposed to holistically looking at that board as a team. And as you think about that sort of juxtaposition of all the directors, and you start to think about not only who's next going to be stepping off the board, but maybe 2 or 3 people after that, you start to think in terms of a composition as opposed to just one transition.
Benefits of having an incredible advisory board. Number 1 is credibility. Number 2 is connections, built-in network. 3 is conversations. They're going to give you guidance that are going to help you get through those tough times.
That's executive coach and entrepreneur Dan Martell talking about why it's helpful to have an advisory board. He's speaking more from the perspective of an entrepreneur, but Jane, you mentioned that when there are no open board seats, director candidates could join the board in an advisory capacity. What's the reasoning behind that?
This is a novel concept and certainly not traditional. But I have had situations where you've got someone who's available, they're a very compelling background, and you want them to participate in the board, come up the curve in time for an open seat that may come in a year from now or so. It's one way that I've seen a couple boards actually address the challenge of attracting the right person at the right time.
You have a particularly interesting example of someone who was brought in as an advisory board member and within just a few years was elected board chair. It's this Cinderella story I'd love to leave our listeners with. Can you walk me through how all of that transpired?
Yeah, well, this was someone that had a very unique background and frankly, we thought was going to be compelling. He went on the board as an advisory board member and a year later served as a voting board member. And a year later, it was announced that the chair was going to retire. So literally 2 years after sitting on the board as a voting member, he became the board chair and has done a phenomenal job in that role.
It's great. It happens, right? It happens. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your insights today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you, Jill.
So we've explored the what and why of doing a board refresh. After the break, we'll take a look at how sitting directors are being evaluated and if they're being evaluated at all. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
Let's talk about imposter syndrome.
According to Korn Ferry's Workforce 2024 report, 71% of CEOs say they feel like imposters. Experts say CEOs' sheer quantity of responsibilities, including satisfying investors, transforming the business, and speaking out on social issues, is a big reason that many may feel overwhelmed.
Shipping prices.
Many retailers say shipping suppliers have hiked prices by almost 20%, causing retailers to pass on the cost to customers. The higher shipping fees reportedly stem from a leap in fuel and labor costs, as well as an overall shift to pricier home delivery shopping.
It's an increase in job seekers adding AI skills or AI experience to their resumes.
Recently released data indicated a 142-fold increase in applicants listing AI know-how on their resumes over the last year. However, experts caution much of it may be overstated, since claiming to have AI abilities is currently critical to getting past resume filters. For more insights on business and leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode, Play the Board Game.
You know whether someone's sitting at the table and not saying anything, or whether they're sitting at the table and talking too much and talking over everybody.
Right.
And you can do something about that, and you can help your board be much more effective and understand who are the A players and who are the B players.
With us now is Anthony Goodman, head of Korn Ferry's board effectiveness practice. We're fortunate to have Anthony because he oversees one of the rare surveys of S&P 500 companies that measures board evaluations. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jill. Nice to be here.
So that last clip featured you talking about how director assessments can help strengthen boards. But in your study, you found that last year, less than half of companies conducted individual director evaluations as part of their ongoing board assessment. If assessments can be so beneficial for companies, why is that figure so low?
When we think about why might that be, my own theory is that collegiality, which is the number one word, if you ask a board director, what's the culture of your board like? The first thing they're going to tell you is it's very collegial. Is there this sort of need to get along, and therefore, we'll put up with things that maybe we shouldn't. But, there's so few seats on the board. Why would you give up one to somebody who's maybe not contributing what they should be?
Talk to me about how most boards currently conduct director assessments. Did directors interview each other? Do they fill out a form? What does that process look like?
Very commonly, there is a board evaluation that is done with a survey, and they use the same survey to ask questions about the directors as well. And we all know the US is a very litigious society, and these things can be discovered. And that would explain why people don't like to give very good feedback via a form, a survey. Much better is where the board chair, the independent board chair or independent lead director, actually will conduct interviews with each of the directors and ask them to assess their own performance, and then ask them to assess the performance of the other directors, collect all that information up, and then also give each director the feedback. How many really do that in that kind of rigorous way where it really is useful feedback, very constructive developmental feedback? I think it's minority.
You also found in your study that only a third of companies use an outside party for evaluations. Wouldn't that be a more objective source for those things?
Well, yes, but I would say that, wouldn't I? But I do think it is true that if you use a third party, whoever it may be, to go and conduct the interviews, I think you're going to get a higher level of candor because you're asking someone who's outside the system to actually be able to go in and look at what's going on, rather than somebody who's part of the system, maybe part of the problem, attempting to actually do it themselves.
Why don't you walk me through the board?
It's about getting things down to one number. Using stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that.
That's a scene from the movie Moneyball starring Brad Pitt, where a radical new concept behind determining player value is first discussed. Anthony, we showed that clip because you actually use a statistical term from baseball known as VORP, or value over replacement player, when thinking about board members. Tell me how that applies.
Yeah, so it's more of a concept that we use to help boards think about the valuable contributions that they're getting from the board members they have. Because I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, there's almost, I'm willing to put up with Fred not really doing that much for the board because he's a little bit out of touch. So I'll let him sit on the board and until he reaches 75, and then he'll have to retire. That's fine, and you think that Fred's doing no harm, and he probably is doing no harm, but he's also doing no good. And imagine what the value of a replacement player, in this case, another board director, who maybe is a sitting executive or someone who's only recently retired and is much more current and will be able to contribute so much more to your strategy conversations.
So leave me with a prediction here. Over the next, we'll say 5 years, do you think the increasing pace of change we're seeing in the world at large will force more rapid turnover in boards, or would you guess that the process will stay similar to how it is now?
One of the things that working with boards I see all the time is that companies are going through a lot of transformation because of what's happening in the outside world, because of AI and other technologies, because of supply chain changes, etc., etc. there's a lot of change for companies. The last thing to change is usually the board. I describe it as being a lagging indicator of the change in the company. That's my perspective there, is that they are a little bit slow to the party when it comes to transformation, and they could be a lot quicker.
Yeah. Well, we will see, right? It's going to unfold in real time for all of us. Thank you very much for all of your insight today. It was really great to have you on.
Great. Thank you for having me.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya, Nadira Putri, and Teresa Allen, and it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time. Everyone except me should go. They can all go.
Exactly.
I'm good.
He should go, but not me.